Hello, good morning, good evening, across the nations, around the world, wherever you may be. This is Eric, this is Obsessive Audio, and we've got a pretty amazing treat again. We're doing something different. I'm bringing back the Audiojunkies guys. Campbell, musician, songwriter, played with me in a whole bunch of bands. Lee Maslin owns record label, record producer. We could talk about all kinds of stuff. As you know, this is Obsessive Audio, so we've got, we're usually focusing on music gear and stuff, but this time we could talk about the actual music and the songwriting process.
Good
and
idea.
Bands and stuff like that. You know? So how you guys been?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, that's fine.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter about the song. It doesn't matter about like how it comes off or the lyrics or how good you can play. It's like, what gear did you use?
Yeah, it's not important.
That's what we're all about here on this program.
Remember, we're trying to impress, not connect. And I think it's important to make that distinction.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, nobody dances to a console. And there will be no dancing.
No, in answer to your question, I'm really good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So let's get to it. Foo Fighters movie, which I have not seen, so maybe the three of us could all comment on it, especially if none of us have seen it. What do you think?
Until you mentioned it right now, I didn't know there was a Foo Fighters movie.
Okay.
I know 8% more than Lee does. I know that there is a Foo Fighters movie. They've made a proper horror film, from my understanding. It's like a real thriller, and they're in the movie, I understand.
Yes.
And also did the soundtrack for it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you know what I know. That's what I know.
That's what I know too. No, I saw the trailers for it, and I saw a little breakdown, and I think some interviews and stuff. And the premise is that the Foo Fighters go into this haunted house to make the record. They find the perfect house to make the record in, and they're writing tunes and they're rehearsing and recording. And during the process, things start to get fucked up, especially with Dave. Dave starts to go a little bit, you know. And I think near the end, he's running around trying to barbecue the other band members and stuff.
So it's the Trent Reznor story then?
Yeah.
Essentially.
The Manson house.
I think of the Tate residence or the LaBianca house, one of the two of them anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, well, he did some recording at that Tate house.
Yeah, the Tate house.
Right?
That's what
that was a studio. That was the studio. It was called Le Pig.
Le Pig.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because you know how they wrote pig in blood on the door? Well, he took the door and took it to his studio back to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And Sharon Tate's sister confronted him about recording his album in that house and exploiting her death in that horrible situation. And at that point, he realized that it's real people involved in this stuff. It's not just movies and TV
show.
It's actually real. This is actually someone's daughter and sister who got murdered in that house. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
So may have been a bad choice.
So I can't run around with the shock and awe of everybody thinking I'm psychotic without actually maybe like affecting other people.
Yeah. There's ramifications to doing shit.
Turns out.
Who knew?
Who knew? People have feelings. Who knew?
Yeah, well, I guess we could also add Marilyn Manson to the list of things that's all we have to say about her.
Wow, you know what I mean. But I will say this much about I don't really know much about the Foo Fighter Dave Grohl thing, but honestly, I think it's also at a point where, and let me preface this by saying, I love Dave Grohl. I think he's the greatest living rock drummer. He's got nothing to prove to anybody, but I think at some point you have to take a break. And you have to kind of take a year or two off and give the public some space to not see your face 11,000 times a day in a different project that he's got going. And I appreciate he can do whatever he wants. He's got a great life and all that stuff. But I've hit my sort of quota on the Dave Grohl for a while. Like, I love the Foo Fighters. I haven't bought a Foo Fighters record in a while because I hear it everywhere I go. I don't have to seek it out for it to present itself to me, if that makes any sense. So. That's my only take on the Foo Fighters is I think that they would, if they made a record every 3 years and it was like the greatest songs of that period that they could coalesce, I think they would be way better than they currently are. I think it's too much output.
It's with a lot of bands. We've talked about this even years ago. They're not making bad music. They're making enough. They made enough of it.
Enough of it.
It's like I got 14 Foo Fighters things. You know, if I only ever listened to Foo Fighters as my only band, sure, the 16th, 17th record, I'd be into it. But it's like, if I'm gonna listen to Foo Fighters at all, it'll be that first record. And even that's maybe once a year, you know. But I stand with Cam. That guy's like the coolest dude ever. Like
Ever.
He's a hero.
He is. I love him. I think we'd get along great. I'd love hanging out with Dave Grohl. I think he's a wicked dude, and like I say, he's a rock icon. But
I'd rather listen to the music Dave Grohl would want me to listen to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Dave Grohl, give me a 10-song playlist. I bet it'd be amazing.
Yeah, come and hang out with us for an afternoon and let's spin some tunes. I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'd be a lot, rather like, because, we can dump on them and stuff, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Dumping.
No,
it's not dumping. It's you know what it is? It's dumping not on Dave Grohl because we all love him. It's dumping on the whole celebrity kind of aspect of it, right? Around me, the time when it happened for me was around the Grammys. When he talked about, we did this album in our garage and everybody can and everybody's amazing and just go out there and you can do it and make some music and everybody's cheering and shit. And it's like, yeah, they did it in his garage, but they flew in Butch Vig and like Neve consoles and all the shit, all the outboard and all the mics.
He's got the board from Sound City. It's like the same board they made Rumors on. Like it's not, it's a bit, it's not really a home studio, really.
Yeah. Who really has a home studio is Yngwie Malmsteen.
Oh, it's not a home studio. He's got all the outboard gear and everything. It's in his home, but it's not a home studio.
Okay, it's not. He'll tell you. No, I have the huge consoles. I have the tube gear. I have all of that stuff, man. I have the tube Can you do good, Yngwie?
No.
I have the tube console. I have the huge console. I got all that stuff. That stuff, man.
He is the Fury, so
Only Yngwie I know is I don't eat no donuts. It's about the only Yngwie I know. And savvy music listeners and YouTube and blabbermouth people will know exactly what that meant.
That's true. That is true.
You've unleashed the fury. You've unleashed the fucking fury.
I don't eat no donuts.
Oh man, I don't eat no donuts. Well, maybe I do it anyway. That wasn't bad.
We got a link for listeners that don't know. We got a link to Unleash the Fury, the not the album, but which was named after this particular incident that happened on an airplane. Very famous in Yngwie world, anyway.
Is that the cover I like, where he's holding the guitar up and his face is all Play-Doh'd? Is that the one?
Probably. That sounds like most of his album covers.
No, Perpetual Flame. That's the record. So that's the cover you want to check out. Google that, people on the internets.
That's the magic of modern airbrushing.
Oh,
man. That's computer there.
It's one of the greatest album covers of all time.
One of the greatest guitar players of all time. I love him.
Oh, there you go. You cannot argue the fact of how talented he is and the fact that he's a technician. But again, do I want to listen to it? Me personally, no. Not my thing at all. I get it. Sweep arpeggios, that stuff's really impressive. I can't do that. I've been playing guitar for 40 years. I couldn't do a tenth of what he does in 5 seconds, but I don't want to. So,
yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. It's whatever your thing is.
I've tried to do it, and I can't do that. I can do a couple fast things, so if you try to do it, like, you might end up getting, it's like shoot for the stars, you might end up at the moon sort of thing.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But anyway, back to the Foo Fighters movie. I read a really good kind of longer review about it, and what they said about it was, well, if you love the Foo Fighters, then this is who they made it for. They made it for themselves, and they made it for their audience. If you take it as just a horror movie and compare it to, like, Get Out or the new Scream movie, then maybe not so much, but it's more like a Phantom of the Paradise thing or that sort of, it's for the fans, and it's... Sure. And I get that. Like Lee said, there are people out there who, and I'm sure it's an age difference thing, but I'm sure there's people that are 10, 15, 20 years older than us who their entire world revolves around the Foo Fighters. They feel about the Foo Fighters the way that I did about Rush and Yes and Genesis and those bands growing up. So I get that. And for those people, fantastic. Tell me it's 1982 and there's a Rush movie coming out. Dude, I don't give a shit how bad it is. I'm buying the ticket. I'm getting the Blu-ray, the Laserdisc. I'm getting the VHS and the Betamax, the two different packages. Like, I'm getting all.
I'm getting the Japanese 3-inch CD single.
Yeah. So I totally get it. It's just that I, at the age that I'm at now and the time I have to explore new stuff, I'm more excited about this new Helicopters record than pretty much anything else in the rock world after 10 years. So there's and it's just about, some other people might listen to it and think it's derivative. It's not my thing at all, but you have shit you connect to, and so it is what it is.
Well, I guess it's derivative, but it's classic. It's a rock band that's always been a really awesome rock band, and they've gone and they've done it again, and it doesn't sound like most records anymore. It has that rock thing that sort of got lost along the way, I think, with the drum samples and the auto-tune and everything on the grid, and everything just kind of, everything louder than everything else.
The excitement. If you don't have that, it's not exciting.
I asked Cam to make me a playlist, like I asked you to make me a playlist, and I made one. So when I put it on last night in preparation for today, the first tune was that new Helicopters track. And the first thing I instantly thought to myself was, these guys understand rock and roll. They understand what rock and roll is, how to perform it, how to present it, and what it's about. Like, they get it. They understand. And even if it is derivative, that's just the vessel for them to put their rock spirit through it. And when I heard that, I'm like, these guys understand rock and roll. That's my opinion. But you're right. Someone else might think this is derivative bullshit. But I thought it was amazing.
Hey, you can't like everything, right? Like I say, it's all about connection. Certain things. There are people out there who think that they've had, spiritual experiences listening to Yngwie Malmsteen records. I don't have that connection to it. But when I hear that Helicopters track, even though I know it's nothing, they're not breaking new ground with new chords and sounds, but I'm listening to it and I feel the excitement that I felt the first time I heard Turn Up the Night in a record store when Mob Rules came out that day. Like, I get that rock and roll thing that made me like it to begin with, and that's a big deal to me. I don't downplay that shit, because to get that feeling is rare these days.
Because Eric even reacted to it, because he knew exactly what I meant, because even the cymbal hits on the hi-hat that Vinny Appice does, the opening of Mob Rules for Turn Up the Night, it's like, you already know what that is, and that's all I've done. And you already feel, you're laughing, you're like, turn on the night.
You can hear that guitar and bass sound together and the chug when it comes in after that hi-hat hit. You know what that is, right?
And you can hear,
exciting.
You can hear the room. And, it's a room. It's not like a giant it's a room. It's a band in a room, and you hear it. And it's got a lot of mid-range, and it's a little bit like, it's not the big, gigantic Canon, that kind of, and it's not like super tight and dry. It's just like it's a room, and rooms are harder to come by these days. A lot of records don't even use real rooms anymore. Maybe for the drums they'll go in, right?
It's not about the room. It's about getting the band in the same area to play together. And that's what it comes down to. If you remember back when we did some of the Audiojunkies guests, we had Steve Hackett in, and he made a specific point about how he had tried making records both ways. There's some records he made with him and a drum machine and one other guy, and they tried to do everything and stack it all up. And he said there's no inspiration or spark at a point. And unless you have other people in the room and you're bouncing off those other musicians' ideas, you're never really going to get the magic. You're never going to get that thing, that fourth voice or fifth voice that occurs in the room when that magic hits. Anybody who's a Led Zeppelin fan, who's ever watched a Zeppelin show or heard a Zeppelin bootleg, you know what I'm talking about. It starts off really rough. They're out of tune. They're having a hard time finding their place. It's the vocals are a little off. It's all just not really coming together. And by the time you're about 16 to 18 minutes into the show, something happens and the band lifts off and they transport for 2.5 hours and nobody knows what happened. It's a sea on the other side kind of thing, and it's magic. And that's why Led Zeppelin were Led Zeppelin. That's why they had hundreds of thousands of people coming to see them, to watch that happen live in front of them. And you can make things perfect on a recording, but you can't get that. And that's really what most people, I think, love about rock music, and why they go to it, is for that feeling of community and excitement level of being in that room, right?
I was telling Cam, my mom's like 78, and she was over the other day, and I played the Queensryche EP from '83, and the first track's Queen of the Reich, right? I mean, she never heard it. How could she have, right? So she's sitting at my dining room table with a coffee, and I go, check this out. So I put on the vinyl of the Queensryche EP, and I don't crank it, but I give good volume. And she sits there, and Jeff Tate's voice comes in. You know the part, right? Right? And the vocals, so she couldn't believe it. Journey and Steve Perry is her guy. Like, that's the guy. No, and also Bruce Dickinson from Maiden. Those are her guys.
Jeff lives right in that area then. So.
Exactly. So Cam made that right? Where he goes, wait a minute, now it's Iron Maiden and Journey or Steve Perry mixed together. So when she heard that, her mind was blown. So to see someone who's approaching 80, listen to a 40-year-old metal tune, but still connecting with it because what they created and what they did still comes through, just like a painting, right? Rembrandt, whatever.
Yeah.
It's hundreds of years old. It'll still, because that's in there. It hasn't been pulled away by all this other stuff to make it perfect for the moment.
Yeah, stuff that resonates is going to resonate, right? Yeah. Why do people still love that first Nirvana or the Nevermind record, right? The big breakout Nirvana record. Generations from now, 15-year-old kids are still going to love that because that record has in it what 15-year-old kids like, no matter what generation you are, right?
And it was what 22-year-old guys liked in '91 too.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that we're talking about here with the Nirvana, with it's that noise and the irreverence, and we're also talking about the excitement of the live feel and the fact that the kids like it, and they do. And I think especially now, after we've been through God knows how long, we've been through the pandemic where people were kind of locked inside, right? Now we're like, watching wars on the TV or worse. And I think I see the young people today are getting more like they're harder now. They're tough. Like I think the music that they're going to be making and that they're going to gravitate towards is going to be even more contain more of those things that you were just talking about there. More of that.
That's a solid point, man. And I think that's where creativity comes from. I think when everything is smooth and perfect, then I think you don't get a lot of really interesting, groundbreaking music. I think you get a lot of the same safe kind of stuff. And maybe if there's a positive side to all this negative shit that's going on, is that you're going to get some really unbelievable creative breakthroughs. Because what I'm looking to hear is, I still love rock music. I just haven't heard a lot of really great innovations in it lately. And so I'm looking forward to the next thing when I hear, I've never heard that before, and isn't that exciting, and isn't that cool? And that's always exciting when that happens. So maybe that's what's going to come of this. Maybe you're going to have people coming at things and mashing up genres and inventing new things we never even thought of. And you're going to start getting more of that kind of excitement level. But it's hard to say. It could go the other way too, because right now we're sort of on a trajectory where the music is sort of just the soundtrack for the other thing you're doing, whether it's the video game or the movie or the video, TikTok reel or whatever that's attached to. The music's the soundtrack of it, but it's not the focus. How many people sit in a room with no visuals around them and look at the record sleeve and go through it? Guys like guys in their 50s do, because that's how we grew up. But are there 18-year-old kids doing that, or are they buying the record and hanging it on the wall, going, "Hey, look, I got vinyl"?
Some are, yeah.
Right?
My son's 27. The only record he's ever bought in his life was one record that he bought me for Christmas about 3 years ago.
There you go.
That's it.
There you go.
That's it.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, it's a totally different thing. My son thinks buying a physical piece of media is cute. Like, why would you do that? Why do you spend your money on something else? Why would you? Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to do that, so it's a total different disconnect, right? Where it's, as long as you can stream it and listen to it, and that's cool. But it's
but this is what I'm saying. They have a different connection to it. I didn't have a PS5 in my bedroom with a 40-inch TV when I was 15 years old. My son does. Right? And so my life would be completely different if I had that experience. And he listens to tunes all the time, but he listens to tunes on his earbuds while he's playing video games off of his Spotify. Right? And so it's just, and that's it's supposed to be a progression. You're not supposed to do the same crap your parents did.
No, you're not.
No, but I just want to hear some innovation. I'd love it that every movie that comes out is not a remake of something I saw 30 years ago, and every record that comes out isn't a sequel to something that existed 20 years ago. Just do something creative at some point. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Something new.
Well,
almost the creativity now seems like you have to go more and more specific. Like I heard that Dirty Honey track, and where Greta Van Fleet sound like Zeppelin. This is like they've gone full Zeppelin. I guess is what they've done, right? And they'll probably win a Grammy for it.
Yeah, with a bit of AC/DC in there, and I'm hearing all the influences. Like,
but
it's a
so
strong
specific,
band. It is.
But that's an old guy like me that's heard everything, so all I hear is the references. And that's not fair to people, because that's for people today for rock music. So I'm not shitting on it. I think it's great, because I want kids that are 20, 21 to then go, oh, I love this, and then go back which we've all done, and they go back to the other stuff. So if this is their entry point, I mean, they could do a lot worse.
Well, hell yeah. And think about it this way, too. If you were to rewind yourself back 30 years or something, you're a kid, and you're like, oh, this is AC/DC. This is fucking awesome. And then your dad goes, yeah, it sounds like Chuck Berry. No, this is AC/DC. Yeah, but it sounds like Chuck Berry. No. So, I mean, everybody's always inventing it, right? Everybody, what did Buddy Rich say? You know, everybody thinks they invented the music business or whatever. I think being young goes with that. I mean, as far as the innovations, I think a lot of the innovations that I'm hearing are not happening in rock. They're happening in the cross genre stuff's happening in like jazz and hip hop, and there's like Afro future music, and there's lingua ignota is a great example of that, like with the screaming and the really dark themes and the lyrics from hell. And I think there's a lot of creativity out there, but it's probably not going to, like, if it's going to sound like AC/DC, how can you, like, rock is sort of limiting itself in that sense. So if you're going to be 4 or 5 guys.
But I guess that's the point. You don't want to be AC/DC. We already got one of them, and you're not going to get better than what they did. If you take that as an influence and you morph it with your own thing, then that's cool. But to try and make yourself another AC/DC, I mean, we saw that all through the 80s and the 90s. Kingdom Come, King Cobra, all those glam Zeppelin bands that existed, right? There was a whole genre of that, and not one of them was successful because everybody knew it was bullshit. Everybody knew it was poser, and it was all, you just knew what it was.
I watched the Monsters of Rock in Buffalo in '88. I think you were probably there.
Probably.
You must have been, right? And it was like, and Kingdom Come opened up.
Oh God!
And they were trying so hard. God bless them.
Scorps, Van Halen, Scorpions,
Metallica.
Yeah.
It was actually Kingdom Come, Metallica, Scorpions, Dokken, and Van Halen.
Dokken.
Yeah.
But my point was, I was right up front, and it was Kingdom Come, and they came up with all their Zeppelin stuff, and everyone started laughing. It was really tough because I was seeing these guys who were total pros. They're up on stage, and they could see it, obviously, but they weren't giving into it. They were still doing their thing. And I thought that was really pro. Like, in the face of that adversity.
Yeah.
You know, not as bad as Joe Jackson opening up for The Who at the CNE in 82.
Joe Jackson.
But, you know, so there's all these people laughing at him, and they're still doing it. And I thought that was pretty pro. And Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac 2000.
Oh, man, we saw it firsthand. That Fleetwood Mac show we went to, I've never seen one person turn a show around like that ever. I watched we were front row. I watched this guy look at the crowd. It was half-empty crowd on a Tuesday night. And the show is going shit. No one wants to be there. The band sure as hell doesn't want to be there. And the first 3 songs are terrible. And you're thinking this is going to be a horrible experience. And we saw the look on Lindsey Buckingham's face. He went, shit ain't going down like that. And he flipped it around, and they put on one of the best rock shows I've ever seen that night. It was great.
Pro.
It was great.
That was pro. So anyway, we're getting totally off track, but I just wanted to
That's what we do.
In there. Right?
Damn it, you're off the agenda.
You're off the agenda. There is no agenda.
Guys.
Right, we didn't.
Number 3.
Number 3. Short list. I had...
next item on the agenda.
Next item, okay, Judas Priest. The recent Judas Priest thing, they were going to have a tour, and then they didn't. Well, everybody didn't have a tour for the pandemic. Then they had a tour, and then they stopped the tour because Richie Faulkner got a heart condition, and then they were going to go back on tour, and then they weren't, and then they were going to do a 3-piece for a bit. Like, how did that all work down, and what do you think?
So I'm going to let Lee handle this one because he and I share the same opinion, but the one thing I want to say up front is, how much do they hate Ken? Like, how much do they hate that guy that they were going to go out as a trio with Rob Halford at the front? That's all I'm going to say.
Well, they were going to go as a 4-piece. They're a 2-piece guitar band. That's what their sound's based on. And they're going to go out with only one. It was one of the few times I've seen news, and I follow rock news all the time, where I saw it and I go, a non-musician made that choice. You know what I mean? Someone who doesn't play an instrument made that call. Because the guy who plays the instrument knows you can't do it. And Richie Faulkner, being a rock and roll hero, he's like, I can do this. If that's what you want, I will do it, and I will make it happen.
Yeah.
Because he's a professional musician who understands his place within the band. He's there to support the band, not to lead the band. You know, so he gets it, and that's why it worked out so well. But Cam brought up a good point. What the hell did KK Downing do? There's been like 3 opportunities for him to come back in the band that would make sense in almost any other band that's existed on the planet. He would have been in the band 6, 7 years ago. But they refuse.
Yeah, that's That's some like old world grudge shit going on there. That is not normal behavior, right?
It's like they'd rather go out handicapped than have him in the band. So at that point,
because he wants, he actually, does he want to be in the, I guess that's the question. Does he want to be in a band? Because, he started 100%. These other bands. He called his band KK's Priest. So that tells
and he got the Ripper singing for him.
KK Downing wants to be in Judas Priest the moment he sent that second letter that made sure he'd never be in Judas Priest.
Yeah, as soon as they said, okay, cool, we're still going to be Judas Priest without you, he went, uh-oh. And that was the second he wanted back in. And ever since then, he's been angling towards that. And he does rants and all kinds of stuff over the internet. You can read it all the time. But God knows what he must have done, man. Holy shit! Like really pissed those guys off big time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was Andy Sneap, right, who produced Firepower, one of the best Judas Priest records in a long time. So, what my understanding was that Sneap left because everything was so up in the air with COVID and with touring that he started booking other bands to produce. And it was going to conflict. That's not true?
Nope. This is exactly what happened. Rob Halford in a meeting said, you know what, think we can do this as a 4-piece? And Richie's like, if that's what you want, I guess we can. Okay, tell Andy we don't need him. And Andy's like, oh, I'm not in the band anymore? This sucks. Mm-hmm. And then everybody goes, what are you doing? This makes no sense. And management said, this ain't us. This is the band. And then they go, oh, well, we're bringing Andy Sneap back, and he's going to play. Don't mind all that. We were wrong. So, but you got to give Rob Halford credit. He came out and took blame. He's like, it was my idea. I thought it could work. It made no sense. We're going back how we should be. Let's see at the show.
Well, Andy doesn't visually suit the band, right? He's not young. He's not like Richie Faulkner looks like he was born to be in Judas Priest. There's no. I mean,
oh yeah.
And I mean, I don't have enough good things to say about this guy. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd have any interest in what they're doing at all. But I think that guy's a rock and roll hero.
He almost died on stage and kept playing.
His heart exploded on stage and he finished the tune, man. Like, I mean, I don't know what you have to do. I mean, like, that guy is a rock and roll hero, but you're at the end of the life of a band and they're just trying to squeeze and wring the last bits they can. And it was probably just a money decision. Guy visually doesn't hit the aesthetic, and can we pay one less guy? It's one less hotel room. It's one less set of meals. It's less guitar strings.
Yeah, I've got two hands. I can play both.
You know what I mean? So that's probably what happened there. But yeah, it was. I'm glad it never occurred because it would have been a really, really bad idea musically. So
because there's no way it could have turned out okay.
No,
there's no way either. They just have one guitar and he uses the harmonizer or effects and it sounds lame, or they have a guy behind the curtain they pay nothing, or like, what do you do?
That's what I was wondering. Did they? Maybe they tried some rehearsals and they hauled out the harmonizer and some extra text to help, try to do all the parts with one guitar, and they just went,
No way, man. I don't think that at all, because you and I both know the technology's there. They could have made it sound just like the record, and they could have done it for guys, no problem. They could have used triggers and tapes and harmonizers. The technology's there. My guess would be it was all the blowback on the internet. As soon as they announced it, there was not one person who thought it was a good idea.
Not one.
No.
Not one. People who have nothing to do. You got guys like
because
Zach
they're
Wild
a two-guitar
who have nothing
band.
to do with it going, I don't know, man. That's not a good idea.
Cam and I, for the audience, Cam and I were in a band, Plastic Bag, and one of the features of that band was the two guitars would do double leads. And where did it come from? It came from Judas Priest. And where does the whole idea of the two guitars? It sort of comes from Judas Priest, at least in the heavy metal world. And
Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, man, they are
Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy, Metallica.
True.
I mean, it's the two guitars is a central figure to if you want to do hard rock metal to a certain degree. You can do the trio thing, and there's lots of bands that can fill it up. Jimmy Page is a great example of what you can do as a three-piece. The Edge is a great example of that.
Yeah, Van Halen.
Filling that sound up. But if you want that chug, if you want that dual harmony lead, if you want that excitement and interaction between those guitar parts, you gotta have two guitar players. It's the only way.
Yeah. It would be a lot cheaper to make pizza without pepperoni and cheese and sauce, but it wouldn't taste as good.
Yeah.
It would be, it would still technically be pizza. You could make a good pizza, but it wouldn't be the kind of pizza
the kind I want.
That's right, yeah.
No.
When you want Judas Priest style hot pizza,
it's not the kind you get in Hoboken. That's the kind I want.
yeah. So it's nice that thing got resolved, because I was in a kind of a morbid fascination going to watch it on YouTube and see this. and kind of be like, oh, okay, I'm going to watch this and see how it turns out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got tickets. Buddy of mine got tickets, so Chris got some tickets. We're gonna go. It's like a month and a half from now. So I'm hoping that the COVID situation's a lot better then. But we were gonna go, and then in the middle of the tour or whatever, in between the tours, I should say, and then we got this announcement. It's like, whoa, man, did you see this? Whoa, what do you think? It was the same conversation.
And I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but the other thing that I heard, the other Judas Priest news, is that there was supposed to be Summer 22 Iron Maiden Judas Priest tour, and that the management teams were really trying to work to make that happen, and Judas Priest said, no, guys, we ain't doing it. So that's the rumor I heard. I don't know if there's any truth to it. But you read shit on the internet. I read that.
Would you want to go on after Iron Maiden? Or even before?
I wouldn't want to go on before him, the same day, in the same city, or in the same time zone, anywhere near it, because you're going to get destroyed.
I wouldn't even play guitar in my living room when they're playing a show that night.
Nah, it's a bad idea. You're going to get killed. They're the winners. Like, there's nobody that's better than what they do. And like I say, I watched performance of Judas Priest doing Another Thing Coming from a few nights ago somewhere. And Rob's can still sing, and the fact that he can do half of what he did when he was a young guy is an incredible thing. And again, he's my all-time favorite metal singer. There might be better guys out there, but everything about the way he sang on those early records is my favorite of that genre. So I'm not dissing him at all. Yeah. But it's past its time now. My favorite thing about You've Got Another Thing Coming, I think that's the greatest heavy metal rock performance of a vocalist I've ever heard. Every inflection, how he rolls the R's, the notes he hits, and everything about that is as tight and perfect a vocal performance as you can get. There's probably stuff that's just as good, but I don't think there's anything better. When I watched him do it the other night, every element that I like about that is gone. The melody's gone. He rushes up the words now. He can't hit certain notes, so it's you sing it for me out to the audience, and it's like, I get it, but I'm not going to pay money to see that anymore. I've seen what I've seen, and I'm happy with what I saw. And it's not that they're making bad music. They've just made enough music. And I really did like Firepower. Like, that record was fantastic.
Absolutely.
But again, you got to throw a lot of that to Richie Faulkner's. Like, whatever he ends up doing, follow
and
that
Andy
guy.
Sneap, right? He made him sound good. Andy Sneap made him sound good.
For
Richie
sure.
Faulkner brought the goods. I think Tipton did play a bit on that record too. So he was still, kind of playing back then, and so he did some guest work. And that Judas Priest is still my favorite heavy metal band of all time, right? And but I love Ozzy too. And look at, you can say, oh well, it's not as good anymore, but compare that to Ozzy and what it's like to go to an Ozzy show now, right?
Well, but again, this is what I'm saying, is that I guess my point is that what's the harm in retiring? I don't understand. Well, yeah, but does Ozzy need the money? I don't think Ozzy needs the money. No, they don't need the money. I don't think they've been that reckless with it.
It's not about needing the money. It's about wanting the money.
I guess. I think it's more about the ego and if I'm not Ozzy Osbourne, Prince of Darkness, who the hell am I? I think it's more to do with that.
And
personally.
How do you keep score?
So, but for me, it does hit a point of diminishing returns where it's like, I don't care to go see it anymore. I'd go see the Stones if I could afford a ticket. I don't think that's a bad show, because he's not doing something that he can't do.
Right? You're going to go out and see Charlie Watts, right? So here's my point.
I'd go to see Keith play. Just to see Keith would be worth it for me.
There you go. Just to see them. And this is my point, which is a little less nefarious. They're just enjoying life. They've got all these fans that they just want to be in the same room. They still like going up on stage. They still like playing. The fans still like going and seeing them play. The fact that the qualities, I could make a list as long as my arm of bands that don't sound as good anymore as they used to, but I think that misses the point. It is about enjoying life. If you go to see Bob Dylan, you're going to get is that reason to not go?
It depends on the night. Well, I'll tell you though, the band's always good. You're never going to get anything less than total pro band playing with him. Yeah, he's going to croak out some tunes, and some nights he's better than others, but I just think it travels better. Like Bowie was like that. I remember Bowie saying years ago that, I purposely sang all of my tunes in a low to mid register to make sure that I could continue to do that as my career progressed. And you look at guys out there like Steve Perry and Lou Gramm and Rob Halford and Bruce Dickinson, who's an alien because he can still do it somehow.
Vince Neil. There was a Vince Neil incident.
Yeah, but Vince Neil can't sing at all. He never could, right? He looked good. He looked really good.
Everybody tried to be Vince. There was a 5-year period where everybody wanted to sound like Vince Neil, right? You remember that?
Sure. Yeah.
When I was a kid, when Shout the Devil came out, there was a guy on our street, and he got so into Motley Crue, he once bleached his hair. Wow. To be like Vince Neil. This is like 83, 84. And we're like 12, 13, 14. This guy Dave, and he had like white bleached straw hair. I'll never forget that. Every time I think of Vince Neil, I always think of that guy. And I think about that's how impactful it was. And there was guys that I knew in high school that wanted to be Motley Crue. Like they would actually smoke the same cigarette. There's a guy we knew who would smoke the same cigarettes as Tommy Lee. Like it was that big of a deal.
Sure.
Right? So a guy that can't sing, right? But these guys are like, they're so huge, and they're doing that in Normodomes this summer.
Wow. Normodomes, yeah. Well, there you go. When Theater of Pain came out, and they got that "Smoking in the Boys' Room" song, like that, the kids they were smoking behind the school. There was a smoking area, right? And when Theater of Pain came out, and "Smoking in the Boys' Room" became a single, all of a sudden now you could smell people smoking in the washrooms. Like it influenced behavior at that school, right? It's like, if Motley Crue does it, I guess it's cool, right? You know, I guess I never thought of smoking in the bathroom before.
Very, very impactful stuff, right?
Also, when I was in high school, I remember there was that record, The Cult Electric. And when that came out, it was like, it just blanketed my school. There was guys that hated rock music, and I remember them because we used to debate them. They'd have like New Edition jackets on and like Jerry Curl and stuff. And they're like, that shit's garbage. You should listen to New Edition and stuff. And I'm like... And then when that record came out, those same guys, one guy's name was Andrew. That's how specific I can remember it. He had jean jackets. It was only about Jimi Hendrix. And like I saw this music actually go through a high school and change people's identity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like it was like just like wildfire.
Slippery When Wet had the exact same impact when that came out. Everyone's wearing acid wash denim jackets and looked like lions walking around their school. I'm like, what the hell happened?
I just
got back from the Power Windows show. Getty's got a ponytail now. Everyone else looks like a lion with an acid wash.
That kind of what do they call it? The Davy Crockett, right? The Davy Crockett hair with a hat in there. But it's not a hat.
In 1985, everybody had mullets. In 1989, everyone had ponytails.
Everybody.
Go watch footage of shows. Go watch Live Aid footage. Nobody doesn't have a mullet.
Everyone.
Nobody doesn't. Steve, we used to have the Audio Junkies Challenge, and we didn't actually explain to the audience what Audio Junkies was and is, but we did the Audio Junkies Challenge. Well, no, but it was a podcast that we had. We don't have to explain shit. So anyway, but we're the Audio Junkies Challenge is find a musician from the 80s that survived the 80s and where there's no pictures of them with a mullet or something approaching a mullet.
Yeah, we did throw that out, and I don't believe we ever had a winner. Did we?
Well, do bald guys count?
No,
like Bruce Kulick, Bob Kulick.
I don't think so. I don't think you can because
they couldn't have a mullet.
No,
because Kim was bald and he still had a mullet.
But it's a skullet.
True, but it's still the same idea.
I know, but I just want to use the word skullet.
It still comes from the same basic principle of I don't give a shit what's going on up here. This is happening.
But I just saw an opportunity to use the word skullet in a sentence, so I went for it. I took
That's brilliant. Like,
that's good.
Oh man, I love the '80s. I really do. I didn't like being in the '80s, but I like the music from the '80s.
I liked, and I liked pretty much all the music of the '80s. Pretty much all, even like the top 40 stuff. I liked the new wave, and I liked I liked the New Orders, and I liked Springsteen. Our school was exactly like you said; it was all divided up. And when I started school, it was still kind of the older school metal, so it was still some Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and the older dudes were like Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Always Smelled Like Weed. They had that slightly related group with the Jimi Hendrix and stuff, but even they were still a little bit separate. And then we had the punk rockers. We had the Skinheads later on. We had the new age, I guess, new wave, I guess you could say, right? Like Depeche Mode and that sort of thing. And then the Boss. There were people that all they would wear was Springsteen stuff, just Springsteen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
With a little bit of John Cougar Mellencamp put in, and just a touch of Bob Seger.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. But if you go back, I can even go back to grade school.
And then there was the thrash metal. When thrash metal happened in the second half of the 80s, that took over. And now, all of a sudden, the whole glam thing was just, we found our thing now. Now it's just grow your hair, jean jacket, Metallica or Slayer patch on the back, sneakers. That's what you do, right?
Yeah. Well, back in the late 70s, I can remember grade school era and my brother being in high school, and there were like the hard rock guys were like the Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple guys. And then there was a whole subset of the Black Sabbath guys, and no one went near those guys. Those guys were scary as shit, man. You didn't go near the Sabbath dudes. They were scary as shit.
I heard one dude had a knife in his locker.
That's right. He probably did. And he smoked weed.
They always they smelled like Otto's jacket all the time.
I was at a New Year's party back in the mid 80s, and everyone had the tunes going. It was really going well. Tunes were happening, and then somebody put on side 2 of Paranoid, and the first song was Electric Funeral, and it just cleared out the room. If Mitch Cruikshank was here right now, he'd remember that moment.
Yeah,
but it was like someone dropped a deuce in the middle of the kitchen.
Just not to...
and it just cleared the room.
I can't dance to this,
before
man.
that moment, it was "You Might Think I'm Crazy," right? And it was like dong dong ding. So these are the memories you get. Right? Those things that you're still funny.
Well, God bless Sabbath, because that's heavy metal before heavy metal's even heavy metal. The inventors, the creators. I found a couple other bands around that time, and they were playing around with the whole Satan thing. I guess, the Church of Satan was founded in '69, so that was starting to get the Xander LaVey and all that stuff. So it was starting to get a bit of press and a bit of, the Satan image is really cool. There is a band called Lucifer's Friend out of that, and I think their album's like 1970 or 71, around the same time as Sabbath.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And the guy's singing, he sounds like Dio, and it's fast and it's up tempo, and I'm like, oh shit, this is like, people say Sabbath invented heavy metal, and I'll still agree that they did, but this is a contemporaneous thing that isn't all like, psychedelic still. This is like,
but
Lucifer's Friend.
You've seen the progression of that through everything too, right? It started off with the Sabbath and that Lucifer's Friend and some of those types of bands, but by the end of the 70s, you're starting to get into like bands like Venom and Motorhead. It's starting to go more, and then all of a sudden you get King Diamond, and he's scaring the shit out of everybody when he came out, right? Even I was scared shitless of that stuff when King Diamond came out.
Yeah.
Hell,
no
man.
way, man. I don't do that devil junk, man.
Gene Simmons scared the shit out of me. I mean,
Yeah,
start getting
that's
into King
true.
Diamond
Yeah.
stuff. It's like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, these were the scary bands, right? They were scary because I think it was the cult aspect, and just like the kind of idea that like you could get hurt. It wasn't scary in like, a violent way, like, oh, you're going to run into this guy and he's going to punch you out or something, like, Henry Rollins is going to wail on my head, man. It's like not that kind of fear, but he might, because he'd been known to a few times. But
I have footage on YouTube you can check out where he's actually punching dudes in the face.
Yeah.
From stage.
Yeah.
He might.
But yeah.
Well, not now. Not now. Not
No,
now.
but back then he might have.
Yeah.
I
Well, there's
heard
that footage he did with Nardwuar. I thought I was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
It's like
wish we could
1998.
play some of this stuff. Crazy.
And it's like, it's one of the more, all the Nardwuar things are awkward, but that one was like the most awkward.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. I don't get that, dude. I never did. I don't understand any of it. It's like so your whole shtick is pretending you're dumber than you are, so you can try to get somebody. I don't get that. I don't know. That's not entertainment for me. It's just irritating.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I never got that shit.
Well, I mean, to get back to the metal there was one week where, in 2 days apart, I think I heard Chemical Warfare by Slayer, and I saw the cover of To Megatherion by Celtic Frost, and I heard the intro to that album with all the kettle drums and the low horns and stuff, and I'm like, this is really evil shit. And I don't know if those guys were Satanists. I don't know if we had any real. Maybe there was a band Black Widow. I think that they were actually kind of into it, but we'd have to wait till later, till like the Norwegian bands and stuff before.
Yeah, the Scandinavian stuff is pretty real deal from the beginnings of it, anyway, from my understanding. But again, like that's got very little to do with tunes. It's more that becomes a life's choice at that point. Like that's a whole different world, man. You know, that's not trying to get on top of the pops.
Yeah, I don't want to
listen to whistle test. You know.
Yeah, I don't want to listen to any tunes that makes you want to burn down churches.
No.
Well, fuck.
I'm not into that.
No, and it's like, my buddies, like he texted me a bunch of years before the pandemic. It's like, Mayhem's coming. Are you gonna go see him? I'm like, fuck, no, I don't. Not that band, because it's these other. And actually now in 2021, 2022, right? I'm starting to become more conscious of like, there are certain elements in heavy metal that are like extremely fucking gnarly. Like they're full on white supremacists in heavy metal. They're full on just fucking freak shows that they will burn something down or like hurt someone. And it's like, and there's actually a movement in heavy metal now that's kind of anti-racist, anti-fascist. And so that's
probably a pretty good thing.
Yeah. Or even, the band,
I'm on board with that.
The band Gojira, right? They're environmentalists. Most of their songs are about like, could we please not like kill the planet? That's what most of their material's about, right? So, yeah. Because at some point, the shock and awe, the 70s horror movie stuff, I mean, it's going to last for so long. People are still going to like it. They're still going to go out, do the devil horns, and Eddie's going to come out on stage during a Maiden show, and they're going to, and going to get the flamethrowers and scream about heaven and hell and all that stuff. And it's still fucking great. And I still love horror. I love horror movies where they saw off someone's arm. We're like, fucking, let's see what happens if we open up someone's head, right? Well, I still love that stuff, but I just don't, I don't like it when it's done in like kind of a hateful way where it's suggesting that now you're going to go out and direct that on someone else, right? Where it leaves the entertainment sphere, and there is a difference, right? It's funny. Remember in the 80s when they had the Satan, what do they call it? The Satanic Panic, with the PMRC and all that, and they were banning all this stuff that had the devil in it because it was making people eat kids and all these rituals and stuff. But I thought about it, it's like that generation. You know what happened was that it was a great line. It was like, Fox News did to my parents what they thought video games and heavy metal were going to do to us.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, because I don't know anyone who personally like went out and like did anything based on listening to playing video games or heavy metal or horror movies.
I've always made it pretty known that I'm against eating children. I don't think that's a good idea, and I'm gonna stand up for it. I'm gonna say that's a bad thing, and you shouldn't do it. So, and I'm also, if I see a swastika, I'm usually on the opposite side. I'm actually going to go ahead and say I'm always on the opposite side. Whatever that aligns with, I'm on the other side.
Whatever that is, how far away can I get from that?
So if it's here, I'm I'm somewhere not there.
Yeah. If I'm in a crowd and they're up to some shit and I kind of think I know what it's all about, but I don't, and then then you start to see some of this stuff. Do you go like, how much more do I really need to know?
Not much. There's like that's why symbols exist, because they're helpful. You're able to spot something and go, okay, I don't want to be here. This is not for me.
Too bad we can't stay. Time to go.
Too bad we can't stay. Time to go.
Too bad. Thanks very much. It's been a slice, guys, but I must be going, right? Right.
Well, it's that magic phrase. I gotta go.
It's like that scene in the Blues Brothers where they're about to go over the bridge, where the Illinois Nazis are taken. Goes, I hate Illinois Nazis, and pulls it into drive. And what's funny, they actually think that he may actually stop. But he's just like, he has zero. When you see Elwood Blue's face when he puts that car into drive and hits the gas,
it's pretty great.
It's like that's comedy magic there, and the way his face looks when he's just, I'm going.
Yeah.
and I look at him thinking, but maybe he's gonna, and they all jump off. Brilliant. Actually, I might watch Blues Brothers now. Thank you for that.
There you go.
I have not seen that in a very long time, and it's time. And that had, at the time, that it was like one of the most expensive comedies ever made. It had the largest car crash, I think, in movie history at that point. Just a lot going on. It was an abandoned
mall. It was an abandoned mall in Illinois, and they just set it up like a real one. But first time I saw that movie, like you guys did, I thought that was amazing. like driving the cars through the mall and crash and everything. I thought that was an amazing scene. Still is.
Still is incredible.
But I mean, I saw it when I was a kid first time, right? And it's like, this is awesome. I loved that movie.
Yeah.
It's a little too long, though. It's a little too long.
Yeah.
It is, but that's a lot of that is the music. The fact that they go into all these musical numbers. There's a song every 10 minutes, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, but
look at who's in that movie, right? It's amazing.
That's what I'm saying. It's maybe a bit long, but where else are you going to see Aretha at that point in her life doing that tune in that kind of a big budget setting? It's for that alone. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like shitting on Magical Mystery Tour. It's the only time you're going to see the Beatles do "I Am the Walrus." So there you go. There you go. If you want to see it.
Yeah, right? Ray Charles is in that one. There's. Even the house band's got like Donald Duck Dunn.
Oh yeah, it's all Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn. It's all those dudes, man.
Carrie Fisher's in it.
Yeah, sure is.
Oh, she's the psycho ex-wife, right? Like with the flamethrower, going to kill everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
we got to watch Blues Brothers.
We got to.
Yeah.
We have to.
But that's the whole point of it, right? One kind of thought comes in, it thinks something else, and bounces off. Now you're watching the Blues Brothers tonight.
Yeah,
and 10
exactly.
minutes ago, it wasn't even in your mind.
But you know what?
Right?
To get back to the Beatles, to get back, pun intended. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Beatles and Get Back. And everybody's been waiting for this Peter Jackson thing for 3 years or something. We knew it was coming. We all thought we'd go see it in the theater, but it turned out that I think a lot of people were locked down when it came out. So we watched it at home. It's gigantic. It's enormous. It's so long. There's so much, and it looks like it was recorded last year. Yeah. What do you think?
So I'll give you my take first. I think Lee and I have a bit of a different view on it. I love the process of making records, and it's always been one of the things when I listen to music is I always think about what was it like when they were writing this stuff? And did they come in with these fully formed songs and they're teaching them to the band, or are they happening as they're bouncing ideas and all that? So to be able to watch that process from the beginning to the end, almost unedited, with all this stuff in there that you never even knew existed, footage you didn't even know was there. I honestly was riveted to it for the entire thing. I loved every second of it. If it was 4 hours longer, I would have watched all that too, and I'm probably going to run the whole thing again within the next month or two, because I really did have an incredible experience watching it. I just thought there was so much cool shit, and watching how the personalities interacted. I liked how it cleared up a lot of the misnomers and the things that, first of all, the guy who made the original film, I can't stand him through the whole movie. You can understand why it turned out the way it turned out. This guy is just an over-aggrandized blowhard with a cigar. He's just, having him there was the biggest mistake they ever made. And when you actually see what the footage was or what they pulled out of it, they didn't hate each other. They were going through the end of the band. They had reached the end of what that thing was. Yoko didn't break up the band. She was there because John wanted her to be there, and everybody was okay with it. And she didn't say a goddamn word. She sat in the corner for days and days on end, sitting through what nobody else would have sat through. Right?
Yeah, that's why,
wasn't involved. So
it's totally weird.
Shit.
It's totally weird, but John John asked her to do it. It was John's idea. John was the weirdo, right? So, and he's taking a lot of drugs at that time. You could tell, right?
Yeah.
You could tell he's like kind of there. You can tell that they're all a little bit. You can tell it's not like, Let It Be, which is the same footage, you get the sense, this is when the band starts to break up. But when watching this, it's like, no, this is when you realize this shit's been going on for years, man. Like,
of course. Of course. And that's what I say, just to have all those little conversations, these side conversations when they're really talking to each other and it's not for the camera. And just I thought it was great. I loved every second of it. And I wish there was more stuff like that. I wish there was that movie of Rush making Hemispheres. I'd love to see that. Anything that I can see that creative process and how it happened. You get to see Paul McCartney writing The Long and Winding Road.
Oh my God!
You're watching it happen in front of you.
Think about that for a minute, right? Think about you're a songwriter, and you got 4 or 5 tunes in your head, right? You've got Long and Winding Road, Let It Be, Get Back. You've got those are the tunes that you just happen to be working on right now at the moment.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my take. Let Lee have the floor.
Lee, what do you think?
I thought it was boring, and I couldn't wait for it to be over.
Oh, wow.
And I plan on never watching it again.
That's it.
There you go. Yeah.
This is me watching it. But the one thing I did take away from it, I had more respect for Yoko, because the fact she had to sit through that week in, week out, I mean, she could have been doing so many other things like painting a picture or something. You know what I mean? So the thing is also I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like stuff that reveals too much. I don't like seeing the process. I find studio stuff tedious and boring.
I know,
so
but you've done that. You do that stuff. Like you've spent time in studios.
I do it as quickly as possible. I have everything done. So you go into the bare minimum you have to do and get out. Seriously, I find to me that was like watching guys tune their guitars. I was bored shitless because I'm not a musician. I can play music, but I'm not a musician.
But what you do is like you listen to what you, in a true producer sense, you listen to what they've done and go, yeah, this is right. No, this isn't right. This is working.
Well, that's the other thing too. I guess also I had a frustration because I'm sitting watching this and I felt like I was behind glass, and I'm like, I wouldn't be a dick, but I'd be like, okay, am I running the show here? Am I producing this? Okay, and it would just corral this thing together, and so I actually felt frustrated watching it because I was like, just do this, and not in an aggressive way where you'd like, boss John Lennon around, but it's like, okay, what are we doing? What songs are we doing today? Okay, what do you got? And you'd kind of produce them instead of just kind of like these things happening. Don't get me wrong, some of the greatest songs of all time came from that, but I just find I don't like seeing all the behind the stuff. I like the final presentation. So when I have been in the studio with musicians, and Cam's even been there too, it's like, I just like to boom, boom, done, great idea, done, go. Because there's 52 great ideas, so we could spend all day here going from idea 1 to 31, but there's any one of these ideas is totally going to work, and no one's going to know there was 31 other ideas that we didn't use. Right. So just boom.
But that's the way records get made. Everybody's got a process. If you watched Hugh Padgham make Synchronicity and you watched Rick Rubin make those Johnny Cash American recordings, I'm sure those are very different experiences as to what happened in the studio and how that process was done and how certain things are crafted in a certain way and other things are about capturing magic. And everyone has their own process and their own view. So I think that's why it's funny, because we both have such similar views, especially on the Beatles, that I remember when I talked to him, I thought he was going to freak out. Oh my gosh, the coolest thing ever. He's like, boring as shit, hated it, won't ever watch it again. I'm like, wow. I loved it was like 6 hours and 9 minutes, and I loved every second of it. Like, I couldn't get enough.
If it was 90 minutes, 2 hours tops, if it was just like, because what I actually wanted them to do was just get the Let It Be movie and give me a good copy of that. Because I've got a DVD of it that's a bootleg from Paraguay or something. It's awful. So I just wanted, give me the original Let It Be movie, untouched. Yeah. Give me that. And then give me like a 90-minute documentary with some narrative. Because there's no narrative in it, right? Mm-hmm. So for 6 hours, I'm just like watching guys do shit. Where if I had someone saying, and then on the first day when Across the Universe was brought in, John, or just something. I felt like I was just watching just footage.
You really have to fill in the blanks.
I don't know. I just found it boring. And I'm not trying to sell my opinion. Because I'm sure 99% of the people liked it, and rightly so. I just found it boring.
Well, there's very little of that.
Thing, right? Yeah, and he's exactly right. It's just not my thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get those little, where they'll put the text on, and then it's like, George. They went over to George's places to meet with him, and the meeting didn't go well, right? And you just get these little kind of, placards, really, text that comes on the screen just to sort of explain where you are, but that doesn't happen very often, right? And mostly it's just them working out tunes, jamming, a couple arguments, a couple interesting things. The thing that struck me a lot about that was Glyn Johns, just seeing him sitting back there behind them, and I'm like, that's Glyn Johns back there. Looking, and he looks kind of out of it, right? He's just looking like, whoa. And what was the story on him? Because he was called in, he was going to be working on the album, and I think there's some mixes that he did or something, like that he made the record with them, but like, how does that go?
Well, I don't know if you've heard it, but the latest Let It Be box set deluxe thing, it's got a Glyn Johns version of Let It Be called Get Back. He did 2 versions of it and presented it to the band. The band's like, this sucks. So he did give them, here can be your new record, don't like it. Then later on he goes, here's another version, don't like it. And that's why it got shelved. That's why Phil Spector got it and just said, just make a record out of it. Yeah, but I did the Get Back Glyn John ones from the box set off Spotify, and I didn't really like it. I thought he got some kind of shitty snippets and some kind of crappy versions. Like, I understand why they rejected it. It's not some lost classic. It's like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I would have rejected it too.
Well, it's also telling that when the kind of songs they were writing at that time was so separated from the psychedelic and the super layered studio stuff that the versions that are on the record, I think 5 of the songs are the ones from the rooftop, right? Those are the ones they ended up using, were the ones when they just played live and they had the excitement and the energy of being out in the open and playing as a band and people watching them. And that's what they say it several times. We do best when our back's against the wall. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. When you get us out there, it'll be fine. And it was the magic takes that they got were the ones they played on the rooftop for most of it, right? And that tells you something. So it ends up being what they wanted it to be in the beginning anyway, after all that,
Because I love that part at the in the very beginning where they're talking about, well, what is this going to be? Oh, well, we could do it in here. Well, the acoustics aren't very good in here. Oh, well, let's do it in the ballroom where we could be like the dance band. Oh, let's get a cruise ship and we'll go down to Greece. We'll do it in Athens.
Who's paying for
Pompeii
that?
Or something?
Who's coughing up for that?
Well, they would have been because they had already formed Apple Corps. Yeah.
Dude, but that's what George says. As soon as they bring that up, they're sitting around the piano, and you just hear George out of the back go, "Who's coughing up for that then? They get a cruise ship and go into Africa. Just do it here."
Well, one of the most iconic.
I got tea at 4.
One of the most iconic album covers of all time is Abbey Road, and everyone knows the story of that.
Right.
Let's just take some pictures of us crossing the street at lunchtime. Okay, there you go.
Here's your record,
and that's known all over the world forever. So it's the Beatles.
If you watch that Sound City. If you watch that Dave Grohl Sound City documentary, there's a great bit at the end where he's recording with Paul McCartney. That's the end of it, right? It's him and Chris Novoselic and McCartney doing a tune.
Yeah.
And they're just having fun. The song's not that great, but they're just putting it together, like Lee says, very quickly. It's just snap decisions, making it and all that. And at the end of it, Grohl's just grinning. And he walks up to McCartney and he goes, "Why can't it always be this easy?" And Paul goes, "It is. Because you're the one that makes it hard. It can always be. This is how we did it. The Beatles. John and I get together. What about this? No, that's shit. We'll go back to. Okay, yeah. There you go. Here it is. There's your tune. Finish it. Write 400 of them. You get a couple good ones.
Yeah. I mean, it was one part I really liked about it was the watching the process of this, just what the songs were in the beginning versus what they would end up becoming, and also the way that it sounds and the way that it looks. I mean, film stock and tape stock was very good back then, but even given that, the level of restoration that they did, the clarity that it looks like it was recorded in high def like last year.
It's like a time
and the
machine.
sound. How did they pull out that sound? Because, it's so good.
Well, this is the level that you have to understand. Peter Jackson ain't fucking around, right? You like him, hate him, whatever you want. That guy has attention to detail, and you knew that it was going to have that level of quality when you knew he was involved with it. So, no, I loved it. I'll watch it again, and I loved every second of it. I was looking forward to it. It didn't disappoint me at all. It was everything I wanted it to be.
I totally get why someone would like it and feel that way. It makes total sense to me.
No, you're wrong because the way you feel.
Your feelings are wrong.
Your feelings are incorrect.
You're a bad person because your opinion is different from mine.
Well, he's clearly stated it. I don't know what else you need.
I'm in the middle on it. I'm the lukewarm water between the fire and ice here, right? Where I was enthralled at the very beginning, just like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And I think I skipped over a lot of part 3 and just got to the rooftop concert because I was kind of like, I sort of drifted off into the back just for a bit, but I also fucking loved it too at the same time. So I had both going on, to be honest.
Here's another question though, and I thought about this when I was watching it. If they had formatted it differently and they were 1-hour segments and it was a 6-part miniseries that you had watched over a 2-month period where they would release one a week, like a miniseries, I think people would have had a different experience with it. Because I will say that to take it in 3 chunks for how long that thing was, you got to be like a Beatles freak like I am to really sit there and watch all of it. Because I've heard some of my family members, my in-laws and stuff, oh yeah, we're going to watch it. I'm like, good luck, because I don't know if you're going to make it. I don't think
that's
my mother-in-law
hardcore only.
My mother-in-law ain't making it all the way part 3. I can tell you that much. No way.
I didn't even suggest that my mother watch it.
Yeah,
so it would make no sense to her. She'd be like, okay, they're sitting around in a room. Okay, what is this? But that's what I mean. For people like that, like a lot of musicians, when you see online who watched it, like your Paul Stanleys or whoever, right? They were blown away because they're those kind of guys. So they understand the process more than someone like I would. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just kind of a different way of looking at it. But Cam is right. Have like these, like this Pam and Tommy documentary, or not documentary, God, it's far from it. But the Pam and Tommy thing.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that. No, I didn't know about that one.
So that's like, you get like a 45-minute episode every Wednesday. So I've been following that. Pretty interesting. The guy looks just like Tommy Lee, though. But he's
so it's not them. It's not like a reality thing. No. It's a recreation.
No. Biopic.
Yeah, remember when that videotape got stolen? It's the whole thing of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember. I didn't. Yeah. I was
I
was kind of done with Motley Crue by then, right? But kind of like not done. Like, oh, I'll never listen to them again. But it was like
not interested anymore.
Yeah, I was on to others.
Well, because when this was going down, that was between the self-titled album that bombed and Generation Swine that was coming out the following year.
Right.
So it was really in that dead zone. And they touch on that on the movie because they show him looking down the wall and it's like Girls, 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 5 million, Dr. Feelgood, 5 million, Motley Crue, 500,000. So they actually show that in the movie that motivates him a lot because he's feeling, he's time's passing him by. There's cooler, younger guys. He's now the oldest guy at the party. So anyway, I thought it was pretty good. I'm enjoying it. But, it's fiction to a degree.
Well, it's amazing
I don't do biopics. I can't stand that shit. That's where we completely differ. I don't want to see some dude playing Tommy Lee. There's enough. Yep. There's enough actual footage of that whole period. I'd rather just see a documentary cut together. There was a Jimi Hendrix biopic they did like about 8 or 10 years ago, and it was one of the most embarrassing, horrible, shitty things I've ever seen in my life. And I'm thinking, why don't you just look at the documentary footage of Jimi Hendrix? They got reams of it, stuff in vaults that no one's ever seen, and yet I'm watching this guy pretend to be Jimi Hendrix really poorly, who's never played a guitar in his life.
And wasn't it that Hey Ya guy that did it? What was that guy's name?
What's that?
You know that band Outkast? Wasn't it the guy from Outkast was Jimi Hendrix?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense.
Don Cheadle. I think it was Don Cheadle.
There was, well, speaking of Don Cheadle, there was the Miles Davis movie, which in the biopic that I didn't see. There was the Motley Crue one, The Dirt, which I did see. Mixed feelings on that. There was Rocket Man. There's the Queen one. What was the Queen one? I watched that one.
Rhapsody.
That was all right, but like you said, I think we do an episode on that or something, or at least talk about the historical inaccuracies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that stuff bothered me because it's not hard to get it right. It's not like it would have changed the movie to actually get those details right. And for Queen fans, it was really unsettling. I mean, Rami Malek was phenomenal. The job he did playing Freddie Mercury, you got to give it to that guy, man. It was incredible what he did. I had a real problem with the way that they manipulated the story to screw with your emotions. The whole thing of him breaking the news he's got AIDS at Live Aid and he's dressed like he was on the Game tour. It's like, none of this makes sense. It didn't happen like that. He had AIDS way after Live Aid. They were still a functioning touring band. They weren't broken up. None of that shit happened. It's all false.
Nope.
All of it.
So, and they're playing Fat Bottom Girls on their first U.S. tour. They're playing Fat.
Yeah, and he's wearing the outfit from the Jazz tour, but it's 1974. It's like it was just. It's not hard to get that shit right, and it really bothered me that they didn't. And even the band defends it of, it's a movie and we had to edit it to a certain. It's like bullshit. You didn't have to have Fat Bottom. You could have played Killer Queen as your first U.S. tour because that was the fucking hit. And you could have showed him playing that with the no mustache and the long hair, wearing the fucking clothes you wore in the 74 tour. Like, it's not fucking complicated, right? It's like, what the fuck?
You get a job before sundown.
You get a goddamn job before sundown. We're shipping you out to military school with a goddamn Finkelstein shit, kid. Son of a bitch.
But it's like, it's not hard. It's like it's a decision that they made, and God knows why they did it. It almost seems to me like they made a choice and they couldn't fact check it, and they went, oh shit, you shot that off. Fuck it, we already spent $20,000 on it. Leave it. It's good.
But they went to all the details. They had the dude with the Live Aid. They had the kid with the suspenders, and they had the glass of water in exactly the right place, and they had every detail.
Dude, he stops and turns the keyboard volume down because it's distorting, just like he did in the video. but they can't get the fucking timeline right. It's like you got the same, the roadies wearing the same cutoffs as in the Live Aid footage, but you couldn't get the songs and the tours right. It's like, I don't know, man. I've always had issue with that. And I'm like, that's just some bullshit filmmaking.
Well, the one that was really jarring was when they were doing "We Will Rock You" in the studio, and Freddie comes in. He's got the short hair, and I think he even has the mustache.
Yeah.
It's like. That
didn't happen for 3 years later. That's
not
like
the same era.
81, 82. No, it's not even close.
Not even close.
Not even close. He had those star sunglasses and the long hair and no facial hair. I mean, I've seen the video. There's a video for "We Will Rock You." You think they would have watched it? They could have shown them. They could have shown them shooting the video, and that would have been a scene.
It does seem a bit strange because it would take nothing to make it correct.
Right.
It would take nothing to make
a lot
it
of the musical choices, right?
So why not just make it correct?
Once again, you've crystallized my thoughts eloquently. I didn't even need to do that rant. We could have just talked to it.
Yeah, but the rants are what I enjoy. Oh, man. Well, that's how the whole podcast thing started in the first place.
That is true.
Because Cam and I would have conversations. I'd be rolling in laughter, and I would listen to podcasts that were similar to these. Like, I can't remember what they are now, but they were similar podcasts like it. And I go, shit, I would love to listen to this.
Let's take it. So we had the Audio Junkies 60-minute podcast. We started it in about 2012, I believe, or 13. End of 2012, beginning of 13, and then we went on for a bunch of years. We did weekly episodes, and there were, I think, more than 200 episodes.
We did 200 episodes. It was 4 years. We never had a repeat. We put a new episode out every single Friday for a 4-year period. So that 200, whatever it was, to match that framework. And it was episode 200 was our final episode. I'm very proud of that thing. I still have very fond memories of. I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys as much as we did and making that a regular thing. So that's cool to do this again today. And I really enjoyed the fact that it gave us the opportunity to meet and sit with some of my rock and roll heroes that we never would have done any other way. We got to spend, all three of us got to spend about an hour and a half in a room with Steve Hackett from Genesis, and that was one of the highlights of my musical life. Be able to do that and ask him questions and be in his presence and do that was pretty incredible. Plus everybody else we had on the show.
Like being able to sit across the table from someone who you've always been into and ask them anything you want was a major thrill. Yeah, really that was so much fun. That was my favorite thing about it. Like, I mean, I remember when Carol Pope was on the podcast, and I brought her in. I picked her up from her friend's place she was staying at while she was in town. I drove her to your place. And then I bring her in the front door, and I see Cam in the kitchen, because the front door you can see into the kitchen. And then he looks over, and he sees Carol Pope with me from Rough Trade. And the look on his face made it all worth it. It was like, that's why I'm doing this.
And the look on my face was something like this. Holy fuck, that's Carol Pope.
Yeah.
And then when Terry Draper on from Clad 2 was on, I think he put it to me. He goes, well, why do you do this? Why are you even doing this podcast? And I go, because it's fun.
It's totally fun. We love that.
That's it. That's it.
Having the guys from Max Webster in, Martin from FM, Mark from Martha and the Muffins. We had Mo Berg. We had Chris Tate.
Gord from the Spoons.
Gord from the Spoons. We had
Danko
Brian
on there.
Brian
Brendan
and
from
Jay
Broken
from
Social.
the Pikes. Yeah, everybody. We
a lot
had
of Canadian rock.
And I mean, that's one thing I will say to every guest that was ever on that show, everybody was super cool. We never had, I think we had 2 people that we tried to reach out to that said flat out, no, we're not going to do it. Everybody else could not have been cooler, very generous with their time. It was everything about that was a positive experience.
Yeah. And I totally feel that way about it. I got like tons of signed, records and autographs and great memories. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, it was super
so
fun.
Great. And we worked like a great team on that one because Lee would book the guests, and Cam would do the editing and the production on the episode. I would handle all the internet, the digital, the website, and all that. And it just, boom, that worked. We were able. It was a ton of work, but I mean, it was so worth it.
It was time consuming, but it wasn't difficult. And I mean, like, I think that's what got to me at the end was that my life just got to a point where I wasn't able to put together a 1-hour show with a 4-hour editing window once a week. It was becoming my entire Sunday night was putting that show together because I was definitely hardcore and we're not going to run repeats. It's going to be a fresh show every week. And so because of that commitment, I just had to back away from it. But it was a ton of fun.
every Thursday night or something at 12 midnight period. Like that's when it had to be. There was no do-overs. We never took a week off. We would pre-record episodes if we were going to be away on a holiday or something like that.
Well, that's when we got smart, when we get together and we put together, 10 or 12 shows in a day and do all the dialogue, and then I could just edit them piecemeal and then put them out every week, because it always meant that we had a nice big canon stacked up to pull from. So that was always good. Yeah.
So for me, it was like a metaphor for a lot of other things. It was saying you can have an idea from nothing, put people together that are like-minded, work together well as a team to achieve a common goal, have discipline and persistence and responsibility. So for me, it was a metaphor for other areas of my life. I know that might sound deep, but that's what it was. No,
that's very true, though. But I can still remember one of my favorite moments with the three of you guys, the two of you guys, the three of us together, was when we're standing in that hotel room in Oakville when Steve Hackett was done and they had left, and the look, all three of us, the looks on our faces and the holy shit that just happened. That was one of those moments where it really felt like achievement and success to me. So
I think the big one for me was Danko, because that was early on with the concept. So I go,
Danko
I don't
Jones.
even know the guy. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know him. So I'm just going to contact him and then all of a sudden we're sitting in your living room and there's Danko Jones. Yeah. So what it was for me, again, back to that metaphor, was like going from, we have an idea. How can we get from an idea to a finished thing that's right here? And that was a big turn on for me. I loved that. So like I'm sitting across from the guy from, I've been really into Martha and the Muffins for the last 2 months. And now I'm sitting across from him and I can ask him anything I want.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're more than happy to tell you. And
they're just so generous. Yeah.
This wasn't like 5 minutes pop in. Like they'd sit with us for an hour, sometimes long. Some of them wouldn't leave. Some of them would be like,
Mike Tilka.
Yeah.
If you remember, Mike Tilka from Max Webster was in your living room for about 4.5 hours, and it was one of the greatest conversations ever. We did a 3-part episode with Mike. And it was actually 3 1-hour segments I edited it down to, and I still had to throw a ton of stuff out that I didn't end up using. Not to mention, we didn't even have the mic rolling, but we sat in Eric's living room with Mike for a good hour and a half after we finished recording and got a whole bunch more stuff I wish I would have had now. But I mean, they're one of my favorite bands of all time, and to be able to, like Lee said, to be able to sit in a room with the guy who was not only in the band, but helped to produce them and run the record company side of it and be involved in that whole scene, to put all of those myths to rest. I loved being able to go, what about that time when this happened? And you go, no, that's not what happened at all. This is what happened. It was just such a satisfying thing for me. It was great. I loved it.
Like this is going to be total nerd stuff, but in the song "Gravity" by Max Webster, when Mike Tilka told us it wasn't Kim's house key that he,
or no, it was I thought it was a bottle opener, but it was the house key.
He thought it was a bottle opener that was dropped on purpose.
Right.
But we found out it was Kim's house key that dropped by accident, and his punishment for being a goofball while he's in the vocal booth was to keep it in.
Yeah, no, we're leaving it in.
Right? How would you know that?
Never.
And then that Max Webster box set came out about 5 years ago, and we all got thanked in it.
Yeah,
we did.
Because we had them on this podcast we did. So I can look through a Max Webster box set and see my name and our names in the thanks.
But that's how things. Awesome. So there's. I'll nerd it out one more step. This is how the ripple effect happens. So because of that happening, I have a friend of mine who's actually from Buffalo, New York, but he lives in Vegas, and I see him once every 3 years. He's a friend of a friend sort of thing. We're not super tight, but he's a really good dude. We get along. We talk on Facebook, etc. About 6 months after that box set came out, I get a text on my Instagram or something one day from him saying, like, holy shit, dude, you're my hero. I just bought the Max Webster box set, and I found your name in the thank yous. So completely unrelated, didn't even know I had done that. And he's like, how the hell did you get in this thing? What did you do? How do you know these guys? What's the deal? Because he's also a mega fan, right? So you don't know how those little touch points, because we reached out to Mike Tilka to be on a podcast, my buddy in Vegas is sending me a holy shit note. It's, that shit's really cool.
If the day before we started the podcast, if I said, oh, by the way, a podcast we're going to be doing with the members of Max Webster is going to be used as the basis for liner notes for their box set.
Right.
That's what happened.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he would have told us at the beginning of that this would be like, because that was some serious in-depth interviewing, right? And we pretty much got everyone that we could in the area, except for Kim, and just talked. And they love talking about it, because I think, it was like, oh, well, these guys, they're really into it. They want to know all this stuff. Hey, if you want to hear it, man, like, okay. And I think we got to make this stuff available. We got to find a way to make the podcast available again because we
obviously we got some copyright issues because we put tunes and stuff in them. Because my whole thing from the day one was I didn't want to adhere to a corporate strategy. I wanted to be able to create a show where we were illustrating what we were talking about. And it's one thing to talk about a song and rave on about all the different parts of it, and then to have the listener go and search that out on their own and find it, and they're probably not going to do it. So I just wanted to make that tight 1 hour show where if we're going on and on and on and on about how great Surface to Air by FM is, we should probably play it for you so you can hear it for yourself. You know, and having Tilka come in, he gave us 2 unreleased Max Webster live tracks that are available nowhere else other than our podcast and Tilka's living room. That's it. That's the only place you can get those, right? So that stuff was really, really important to me. So I get the copyright stuff and all that. You have to be careful with it. But to me, it sort of takes, it's like watching WKRP with the fake music in it. I don't want to watch that.
No, I know, but I mean, I guess what the problem was for podcasters, if you wanted to do that, there was actually, I looked into it, there was actually, you know, this is like 8-10 years ago, there was actually no legal way. It wasn't even like if we had all the money in the world and wanted to pay to have all this stuff on. There was no blanket, you know, you could do a blanket maybe on the performance, but not the mechanical. It was considered both, and that was part of the problem. So this would have meant tracking down all the original publishers, even for like a 2-minute snippet. And it was just like, no, we can't. And we tried to put this stuff on YouTube, and it just got flagged like right away. You know, I think I put the Alice Cooper episode and three notes into School's Out. It found it. It's like, nope, boom, gone. It's like, okay, I guess we're not on YouTube. This can be on YouTube, right? But I will try to find sometime a way to make all the 200 episodes just available for download or whatever.
I do get, you know, it's funny. I still get requests out of the blue every now and again for somebody asking if they're anywhere that they can find them. So I think there's probably some people out there that would enjoy that. I think I know we definitely had some regular listeners that really look forward to it. And, you know, we the whole premise of this thing was Lee and I talking in the car every day and saying, you know, wouldn't it be great if you had to go do something you really don't want to do today? Like, let's say you got to do a work trip and you got to get on a plane to go to Vancouver and you got to lay over in Calgary and you're sitting in the airport for 2 hours with nothing to do. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just punch something on your iPhone and hang out with your buddies for an hour and talk about tunes? And that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, totally. It's supposed to be a healthy, positive escape from normal life, right?
Yes.
And so I would get feedback. I remember I was at a friend's place. And it was like his daughter's bar mitzvah or something, some type of religious thing. Anyway, so it was a family get together, and I went to this. And so I showed up and I start talking to somebody, and then a guy sitting at the table looks over at me and he goes, "Audio Junkies," and I go, "Yeah." Right, and he goes, "Which one are you?" You know. So anyway, so he was a guy I didn't even know who actually listened to it. And then he told me about how, you know, Fridays, when his week's over, he'd go in his garage and do stuff he had to do, and he'd play it. Or there's a guy who's a teacher, like he used to mark his homework and tests to it and stuff. So people would actually have these tune buddies that they'd hang out with and listen to tunes, and that's what I loved about it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I think we did right from the beginning till the end, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it was that was a mission accomplished. I think out of you know, they always talk about teamwork and finding it's finding the thing. You get a band that clicks, or you know, an organization, a business, whatever. Right, just something that clicks. That Audio Junkies, I think, will always go down as the thing that probably clicked the most, where we got the most amount of stuff actually done in a short amount of time. Regular clockwork. You could see it. You could see the results in terms of the number of listeners and just the gravitas of the show. How easy it started to become to get more and more guests as well, because they'd seen the stuff that we'd done before.
That's right.
Yeah, that was just phenomenal.
But you know what, it's like Lee said, it's about, you know, everything in your life has to do with focus and action, right? If you decide you're going to do something and you decide you're going to do the things it takes to do that, and we just got very lucky that we happen to be 3 really good friends outside of anything we've ever done like this, any media stuff. And so, you know, you can count on each other, you know, you can trust each other, and you know that the other guy's going to hold up his end of the bargain and do what they have to do. And it's just, we set out a set of rules and we adhere to them, and everybody hit it. We never had anybody flake out. We never had anybody, you know, it was just, it worked. It was it's lucky when you can get a partnership like that. That's one of those chemistry things that you can't manufacture that, right? It is what it is.
Well, it was always based on respect for me. Because I always respected how much Cam had to do editing and recording and equipment and driving. So I always respected that, and I respected your time that you're hosting all the time. You have to put everything up on the internet. You got to make sure this gets... So it doesn't just happen. There's all this stuff that goes on. I guess that's why they thank the road crews, right?
Of course.
Yeah,
because the band...
exactly.
I mean, Judas Priest just doesn't show up and jump on stage and leave. There's all this stuff that goes around.
Man, the Dragons don't come out of the amplifiers on their own.
Yeah.
They don't.
Right?
No, you gotta load that shit in there in advance.
You gotta prep that shit.
But you know what? Here's the thing. It wasn't that much. Like, we didn't sit in the meeting and go, I think that we should do this or that. You know, it'd be a phone call or a text or something, and we would. It was just very action oriented, right? We gauged our progress by how we acted and what we produced.
I think the first 2 episodes, I had a list of questions. That the first 2 guests, I think, actually had a list of questions for people, and I never even used it. And I don't think after that, not one of us ever had a note that we used on any of the shows. And that's what I liked about it, was because we weren't trying to be perfect. We told everybody up front, I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of shit that's probably not true. I'm giving you my recollection of it. Anything Lee tells you is true. That's the one thing you can count on, because he's a fucking encyclopedia. I'm not. I've lost a lot of stuff.
Oh, that was released on March 23rd, 1983 in the UK, but it didn't come out until July 17th. I'm not going to get mad at my mom.
Track 3.
What was that line?
Track 4.
I'm not going to get mad
at my mom because she doesn't know what year Caress of Steel came out.
And the thing is, I never bluff, because if I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know the answer.
But if he does say he knows the answer, he actually knows the answer. There's no point in arguing. You will be wrong. If he doesn't know it, he'll tell you. But if he does, he does. So that's what I'm saying, right? So we all had
March 23rd, 86 was 5150, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
But it isn't. It means nothing. It's meaningless.
It's not.
No, it isn't. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's trivia, right? But it isn't trivia, but it's rock history, though. And that, like, when we're talking about Queen and we're talking about the timeline, it's like, this is the shit we're talking about, right? It's like,
well, it speaks to impact. If Lee remembers that it came out on that date, it obviously he must have been waiting for it, and it must have had an impact on him, or he wouldn't fucking remember, right?
Can you imagine waiting from 1984 to 50 with the new singer?
The very first record without David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, who we already knew. It was this whole, like, you heard the single, and I don't care who you were. When that single came out, everybody dug it.
I remember being in high school.
Well, I'd say not everybody. Some people are still not over it yet. Some people still haven't come to terms with it yet.
I loved it when it came out. The
band is done. Eddie's no longer with us, and there will still be some people out there just like, whoa, that's not...
Yeah, I'm sure, but whatever. I take the Wolf Van Halen approach on that, where I honestly say that I way prefer the David Lee Roth stuff, but to discount the Sammy Hagar years is ridiculous, because it's still Eddie writing that music. And so if you like Eddie Van Halen's music and playing, and you discount that record, you're discounting half of his career. And I think that's wrong, because there's great shit on those records. Sammy's voice can get on your nerves after a while. There's no question, and it's not all good. It's not the quality of the Roth stuff, in my opinion, but there's still great tunes on those records.
And also, to be fair to Sammy, he was pushed by the producers.
For sure.
Because 5150, where his vocals are over the top.
5150!
He was
that's pretty high shit.
The vocals were produced by Mick Jones of Foreigner, who produced the vocals for Lou Gramm of Foreigner.
Right.
That's why they brought him in. That's why they brought him in, just for the vocals. So that's why Sammy's singing, like, at the top of the stratosphere, because he's being produced.
Right.
It's, go for it. I need a higher, harder. So Sammy wouldn't have necessarily sang like that.
Right.
Unless he was produced. So,
Yeah.
So you can't really blame Sammy for that.
No, you can't.
There's great stuff on those records.
Yeah.
Yep. What about Wolfie's new band? You've been hearing it? I've been hearing it just here and there throughout the last few years, and it's like, fuck, it's pretty good, man. It's pretty.
I think the music itself is a little disconnected from what I would listen to normally, but I bought the record the day it came out. I will support that kid, anything he ever does. He's a rock and roll hero. He's unbelievably gifted and talented. He seems to have a pretty cool head on his shoulders. I think he made a phenomenal record. That Distance tune, that's the last song on the record, I can't even watch the video. I can't go near that goddamn thing because it's so unbelievably moving emotionally and incredibly well done. I seriously can't watch the video. I tried to show the video to my son one time, and I couldn't make it through. I'm bawling my eyes out, and he's looking at me going, what the fuck's wrong with you? I'm going, I don't want to talk about it.
I showed that Distance video to my wife without telling her what it was. I just watch this video. I gave her no lead up.
That's cruel, man.
And at the end of it, she looked at me like I had, I had done something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to give people a heads up on that.
How could you do
thing,
that
man.
to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's never watched it since and never wants to again.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? Good for him, man. He's just what a great job he's doing, and
it's amazing.
I think it's awesome. I love everything about the kid.
And what was really cool about it is Eddie was one of those guys that was hyping him up from day one. Always hyping. You got to wait till you hear this kid. Wait till you this. Oh, that's great, Eddie. We're sure he's awesome. Because what are you supposed to think, right?
Right.
But he comes out, and Eddie was actually right.
Yeah.
He was banging
everything
he
said it was.
said. And that Wolfgang kid has got nominated for a Grammy.
There you go.
Well, good for him, man.
So, I mean, in the music industry, that's success, right?
Yep.
Even though it's it's bullshit. It's still...
He went from he did one tour as an opener, and now he's doing a tour as a headliner. His second tour, he's headlining. He's playing smaller venues, but Grammy nominated. He's got another record already in the can. He's probably got enough tunes for second and third album coming out. I can't wait to see this kid 5-10 years from now. It's going to be incredible.
Totally incredible. I mean, I think that not the lineage, maybe with the Grammys, it's a head up, but it is a great album that he did, and especially if you like that kind of music, I guess that's what you were getting to earlier. This thing is so well produced, and it's so and there's some new music that I just heard, and it's like, this sounds like $1 million. And if that's your thing, it's like it's as good as it gets. If that's your kind of music, if that's your thing,
yeah.
And what he's gonna do, I mean, it's like. He's got the chops, man. It rubbed off on him or whatever, I mean, he's got it. Now all he's got to do is get Jason Bonham in the band, and Jacob Dylan, and
I don't think you want him in that band.
No,
Danny Harrison.
Yeah. What else did you see anything else cool, like movie-wise, music-wise? What are you guys listening to now? What's your new, like, let's talk new artists. Something new or an older artist with a new album, something.
Mine will take the least amount of time because I really don't dig as much as I just don't have the time to invest in it that I used to have. But there's been a few things that have hit me. I'm always interested in the Helicopters record when that's coming out. So that's my big thing I'm waiting for now. The best thing I've heard that came out of the blue was, I love it. Lee, every once in a while, about twice a year, I will get a package in the mail and I'll go, what the hell is this? And it's Lee who sent me a record that I need to have.
Oh, right.
And about a year and a half ago, whatever it was, he sent me this record by a guy named David Ramirez, and it was an absolute bullseye. Every single tune on that record is phenomenal. I listened to it 20 times in a row. It's part of my regular rotation listening now, so all that kind of stuff like that happens every once in a while, which is awesome. But honestly, I don't, I like Phoebe Bridgers a lot. I think her last couple of records are really good. I tend to go for more of that kind of atmospheric stuff. I'll check out anything that's going to be Radiohead related when they put something out, or Sigur Rós or stuff like that. But for the most part, I listen to the classic rock music that I've always loved and the bands I've always loved, and I spend a lot of time listening to jazz music. That's my big thing these days. I listen to an awful lot of like 1950s and 60s jazz records and 70s fusion, and that's pretty much what I go to. I'd probably say that's 75% of my listening these days, just because it's a genre I've always loved and I don't know it as well as I know every Genesis record inside out. So, I'm discovering Cannonball Adderley music and Dexter Gordon stuff and Stan Getz stuff. And I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Charles Mingus and Herbie Hancock. And it's endless. It's like, you want a Herbie Hancock record, he's got 900 of them and they're all great. I mean, it's all great. You can check out the new Madonna single when it comes out if you want, but if you don't know this Dexter Gordon record called Go, that's probably a better use of your 45 minutes, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's only so much time, right? There's only so much time to listen to the same old stuff. I listen to stuff that I knew it was crap at the time, and I'm like, but I got to hear it again. It's like, this isn't very good. It's like you could be listening to one of those old Miles Davis records or something, right? Like life's short, right? So,
but there's also something to be said for crap too.
Yeah,
right. Because my favorite song at the moment right now, which I put on both your playlists, is Big Mac by Village People.
I'm glad you brought that up because we need to talk about Big Mac, because that's probably the biggest laugh I've had all week. I heard that on the way up here on Lee's playlist, and my God, that's phenomenal.
Nothing better than a Big Mac.
So here's my question. Did they write it? Did they write it and record it as
it's a lot of guts?
to
make something like that, right?
But did they want to do it because they were trying to record it, have it done, and they could sell it to McDonald's and use it for a commercial, or is it truly an ode to the Big Mac? Is it like Sweet Leaf?
I believe it's an ode. I believe it's a good example. I believe Big Mac by Village People is to what Sweet Leaf Black Sabbath.
Wow. So that's even better if that's the case. Because I was listening to, okay, well, it's the Village People. The manager must have said, look, you guys do this, and I guarantee you we can sell this to McDonald's and make millions
I don't know for sure, but there's no cynicism in the song. The reason it's on there is because it's like, you know that song Feeling Groovy by Simon and Garfunkel? I've always had this test. If you're in a really good mood and everything's cool and I play you that song, you totally dig it. Yeah. If you're in a bad mood and shit's going real bad and I play you that song, it's going to be annoying as hell.
Yes.
So Big Mac by Village People, and it's not even the classic Village People. This is from their Renaissance album from 1981.
Nice.
When they did a redo. So this
David Scarhoto still in the band?
He is, but they've done a redo. Mm-hmm. So what, you know how Kiss with the Elder, they streamlined their look and like Gene's got a ponytail and they're wearing like all this different stuff.
The jumpsuit.
Village People in 81 put out Renaissance. It's post-disco. So now they're a new wave band and they're a new romantic band. So they've changed all their look. They've got like, it's all the same guys, but a totally different look and sound. So that's where that comes from. That's not even from the YMCA years. This is from 81. Yeah. So there you go. So that song's junk. But the thing is, everyone I played it for, my mother, my wife, you guys, everyone laughs, they have a good time, and they have a chuckle out of it, but not at the expense of them, because they're in on it too.
Oh, it's great.
Right? So that's what I mean. So it can't all be Beethoven's Ninth. Sometimes you need Big Mac by Village People.
Sometimes you do. No, but so I spent all of last year listening. Like I was on a funk tear. It was so much funk, and yes, crossing over into the disco and some of the electronica as well. But mostly the classic funk. I think the Good Times by Chic is still one of the best bass lines ever recorded in the history of music, including classical. Newer band, Fearless Flyers, who I guess are some of the Wolfpack guys, but I like it better than Wolfpack. Mm-hmm. The Fearless Flyers.
That came up on your playlist, dude, and that's been on several of my top 40 playlists that I run every week. I found that tune a little while ago, just like on one of those release radar things, and I had the same reaction you did. That stuff is badass good.
Fucking wicked,
really good. Yeah, really good.
And I got into, for straight up rock, I guess that Dirty Honey band is probably one of the contenders as a new band. But I was listening to a lot of jazz too, working with some jazz stuff and producing that stuff, and I would just pull out albums just to reference to hear how things should sound, and then I get hooked on it, and into like a bit more with the progressive stuff. What's her name? Hedvig Mollestad. Amazing guitar player, which is like it's kind of a rough rock indie meets fusion meets it's awesome. And then also the kind of modern drone ambient kind of classical. There's a song called "A Head Full of Mush" by Johan Johansson.
It was also on your playlist. The last 3 or 4 tunes, that ambient jazzy type stuff you put on, I dug every second of that stuff. I thought it was all great. And I never would have found that any other way. That's why these playlists are great, because you get it's a really good filter, right? So
because I always find Eric's interesting, because I always look at it and I go, these are songs I have no idea what this is, but I know I'm going to dig it. Yeah. And then I put cams on and I get certain ones I don't know, but I get tunes on it that I haven't heard in a long time or that totally fit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then mine's kind of a bit of both, I think.
And that's what I liked about you.
Go ahead. I was going to say, Eric, for your playlist, before I forget about it, the one that really nailed me, and I've listened to it 5 times, is "War Dance" by Killing Joke from that John Peel
so
session.
Good.
Holy shit, that's
so
great.
Good. There are there's a bunch of different versions of that song. So that's a live John Peel one. There's a original single version, which sounds pretty close to that, and then there's the one from their first record, which it makes a decidedly electronic turn. It's slower. It's a drum machine. The vocals are really effective. It's also a cool version, but I thought the John Peel one would be a good.
That's badass, man. I can't imagine it being better than that. I loved every second of that. War Dance.
Come on, man. Yeah, they're one of the greats, right? And that was part of the reason.
Good.
And And the other, what I liked about what you guys was there were some familiar tunes. I'm like, oh, I haven't heard this song in a while. Oh my god, that's wicked. And then there was also some stuff that I didn't know about. The new Sting record, which sounds phenomenal. Whoever mixed that,
that's something.
Oh.
You nailed it. That mix on Rushing Water is one of the best. Like, I mean, that might be one of the greatest sounding things that I put on my stereo. First time I dropped the needle on that, I was like, wow, that catches your attention.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly balanced. I can't critique that mix at all. It's perfect.
Yep. And and you know it instantly when something is that well put together. It's just like, ooh.
Yeah.
That sound will cut through a brick wall and not be harsh and not be, none of the problems, all of the good stuff, right?
All of it, no. Deadly good.
The other thing that didn't make my list, but I've been obsessing over the two Queensryche albums, Operation Mindcrime and Empire. I've been listening to them kind of on a loop last few days. I'm not even sure why. I'm liking them a little bit more than I should at the moment, but they're fucking brilliant. I
don't know that you're liking them any more than you should, dude. I think those are both pretty unbelievably great and underrated. Well, Empire's not underrated. Everyone knows what that is, but I think Mindcrime has its little, pocket audience of people who know, if you know kind of thing. But,
right.
If you like that genre of music, I can't imagine anyone not liking that record. It's one of the greatest metal records of that period, especially even if you want to tie in the concept and all that, but there's not much that tops that thing. That's fantastic.
Well, if you recall, spring of '88, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son and Mindcrime got released right around the same time. So I used to do and there was no new Rush record in '88. So those two, the Queensryche and the Maiden, it was just like this. Once the Maiden was done, I put the Queensryche back on. Queensryche's done, put the Maiden back on. That's all it was for about 6 months.
Yeah, I think you listen to Mindcrime more than... Well, no, you listen to the Final Cut by The Wall more than any other record, but I would say Mindcrime might be number 2, outside of the Rush stuff.
Yeah, outside of Rush records.
Grace Under Pressure is probably the most listened to record you own.
Yeah, it just kind of happened that way.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that those are the top two, though, because I mean, I think I'm not sure about Mindcrime, but Empire was produced by Paul Northfield, who's got that history with Pink Floyd. But they have a commonality that it's not just the production, it's the sensibility. You really notice it on Empire, right, where it's like Comfortably Numb Part 2, right, that they did for the big single there. But wow, just the drama and the operatic, the concept, the grandiosity, it's hard to find better.
You got a combo on Empire of great songs, incredibly well-matched production for those great songs. I think that's the biggest part of it, is that they couldn't have nailed it better. That record couldn't sound any better than it does for what it was supposed to be. Songs are great, the vocals are great, the performances are great, the production's great. It's got all the elements you need to have a great record. They nailed it.
The only problem with Mindcrime, at the very beginning when it has the hospital introduction, calling Dr. David, telephone call, that's stock. Right, that wasn't done for Mindcrime. That's just stock sound. So I've watched TV shows and movies like Ironside or like whatever, and I hear that same thing. Telephone, please, Dr. David. Telephone call. So that stuff. So that's actually been used in a lot of other. It's kind of like the Wilhelm scream. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I don't think I've heard it before.
That's why I felt it was worth mentioning to another Queensryche nerd. Where that's not made for that was just stock stuff they used. So I've watched TV shows where that's been in. I go, that's from Mindcrime. So one nerd to another, right?
Crazy. Is anyone still watching? I feel like we've been talking since June. Is anyone still watching?
We're recording.
Is the record button
one.
even on?
Yeah. No, the record's on.
Is the record button even on?
We could have been streaming this. I was just worried. I was worried we were going to just start saying like horrible things or whatever, but no, we're good. But that's good. We've been talking. Let me check this out. 1 hour and 44 minutes, people.
Oh, that's not as much as I thought it was.
So the 60-minute podcast is like you're getting two for the not quite two for the price of one, but yeah, I think that's a good one, right?
Yeah, if we're catching up, then we got to do a little bit more than just the 60-minute, I suppose.
Well, I just kind of view this as us doing like a Zoom call, catching up and hanging out. I didn't even really think about topics and stuff.
Well, there you go. Well, we didn't need them though. I mean, this is the grand get together again, and I thought, I've been doing this channel maybe for like a year and a bit, and usually it's digital plugins, and digital software showing people, oh, this is how it works, and this is how it sounds, and it's good or it isn't or whatever. Usually I just do stuff that I like, but I had this idea always for a while, and in New Year's I made the decision. I want to start doing other stuff. I want to bring some hardware on the show, or maybe some tips on how to record, or bring people that make music and talk about that process. And I thought, what would be perfect? The Audio Junkies. Let's get the Audio Junkies back together.
Simple as simple gets, and it's always good. It's always a good hang, right? So I'm up for it, whenever.
Well, I'm just thankful that you guys could come on. You can make it in the same room too. Wish I could be there, but whatever. I'm behind the scenes, manipulating all the blah blah blah, right? So, but yeah, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Lee Maslin, 2/3 of the Audio Junkies. It's great to have you on. Thank you very much. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Obsessive Audio.